I will proclaim to the world the deeds of Gilgamesh. This was the man to whom all things were known. This was the king who knew the countries of the world. He was wise. He saw mysteries and knew secret things. He brought us a tale of the days before the flood. He went on a long journey, was weary, worn out with labor. Returning, he rested. He engraved on a stone the whole story. When the gods created Gilgamesh, they gave him a perfect body. Shamash, the glorious sun, endowed him with beauty. Adad, the god of the storm, endowed him with courage. The great gods made his beauty perfect,
Hey,
surpassing all others, terrifying like a great wild bull. 2/3 they made him God, and 1/3 man. In Uruk, he built walls, a grand rampart, and the temple of blessed Inanna for the god of the firmament, Anu, and for Ishtar, the goddess of love. Look at it still today. The outer walls, where the cornice runs, it shines with the brilliance of copper, and the inner wall, it has no equal. Touch the threshold, it is ancient. Approach Iana, the dwelling of Ishtar, our lady of love and war, the like of which no latter day king, no man alive can equal. Climb upon the wall of Uruk. Walk upon it. I say, regard the foundation terrace and examine the masonry. Is it not burnt brick and good? The 7 sages laid the foundations. Hi,
nice.
everybody.
Hey,
We're going
Hi.
to talk about
hold
the
on.
Epic of Gilgamesh.
For some reason on mine it said we weren't live for a bit. I think it looks like we're live now. I guess it caught all that.
Maybe it didn't, Maybe
I
it
don't
didn't.
know.
Well, people can look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, I made you watch the Epic, or read the Epic of Gilgamesh. What did you think?
Dude, I loved it.
On a literary level, we'll talk there first.
Do you want to go first, Michael?
Well, I mean, it's definitely like very interesting how it has that feel of like the Bible when you're reading it in a more literal translation that's not, trying to modernize too much. Like so much of the phrases were very familiar and things like that. So
Yeah.
Cool. Did you like it just as a book? If it had no biblical parallels, would you still enjoy it?
yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where it is sort of that same way where like they compress so much that there's like, oh wait a minute, some massive thing just happened in 3 lines. I have to like go over that again and make sure I understand the implications of like this epic event that they gloss over very quickly. So it's yeah. So you have to pay attention, but it is good.
Jason, I already know how you feel about it, but why don't you share your feelings?
Yeah, I've loved it. The first time I read it, so I bought a copy. Well, I had already had a copy that I bought a while back, just at a used bookstore. Um, and I had read through some of it. I think I might have read, I don't know, through some of it. And then gosh, it was months ago, you mentioned wanting to talk about it. And so I read through it, and I remember it feeling very heavy. It does feel like the Bible. It feels very ancient. The way they talk about certain things is different. Like the way, I mean, it's not like if you read like a fantasy novel or something, it doesn't have that same feel at all. Like it's just like everything is just more, um, I don't know if primal's the right word, is how it kind of how it feels. And there's certain things in it that feel like that might be looked over that you would get in other stories that feel like there's emphasis on. I remember in the version I had, there was like before they went out to battle, it had something about the women blessing them and things like that. And it was like it weirdly seemed to be like an emphasis on that. I don't know if that happened in the version you sent online, because you sent me a YouTube version to listen to as well, in case I didn't get to read through it. But then my second go through the story when I was listening to the YouTube version, I wish I would have had like a copy of that in front of me that I would have been reading as I was going through, because there were parts of it that I just was like, that just kind of struck me really deeply. And then there were also the second time through was when I was just realizing, man, this story just seems like just it seems on. I know this is gonna sound bad to people, but to me it seems like just as true as the Bible, if not. I mean, literally, just I was just reading it, and I was like, this story just feel. Not only does it feel true, it just when I sit and pause and think about it, it just has like it is true. There's just so much about it that is true, and I don't know that. I will say, like, I don't know that it presents the right way of living or the right way of salvation, but it does feel very true. It's kind of like the same thing with there's horror movies that feel the same way. Like you can watch a horror film and you're like, wow, this is just like following this idea to its end, and that's why it ends in horror. Like the what was that new Viking movie that came out? The Northman. I felt like that was like a true story as well.
This is horrible but true. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know that I necessarily felt it was horrible. It weirdly kind of left me kind of somber, I guess, at the end. But it did feel like very true, and it felt true on like a weird, especially the second time through. I was like, it really feels true on like a weird sort of strange. I don't know if fractal's the right word, but I was like, I feel like this story kind of happens to every person because, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that, like the whole, and the two characters in the story, but it really struck me the second time as just being like, wow, this is something I could probably read and meditate on for my life. But
Jacob says Christians always introducing idolatry to my channel.
It's mostly
Why
me.
do I let you guys on my channel again?
I'm over here burning my incense and.
Well, yeah, and, it's interesting because I know what you're saying when you're talking about it. I actually had a conversation with a guy at my work today, which is a guy that started pretty recently, and he's a Christian, which is pretty cool. And we were just talking about how, because he's kind of into like a lot of the archaeology and history and kind of stuff like that. And there was this thing where, like the critical view of everything. It didn't just happen like in the Bible. It like happened to everything. So it was like all ancient documents are just like assumed fictional and false until proven otherwise. And I mean, right. I think, and then a lot of Christians tried to push back on that more in the fundamentalists, you would say, but they did real work and, they did real archaeology, but they kind of made a weird error where they wanted to say the Bible is completely true and literally true, and all those other things are totally fictitious. So it was like,
So my introduction to Gilgamesh and why I wanted you guys to read it, and also a bit of a response to Jacob at the same time, is my introduction to Gilgamesh, which is I think a lot of people's introduction to him, is being told the Bible isn't true. Someone else wrote exactly the same flood story. So therefore, it's Michael Heiser's understanding of it is like, it's like for Genesis, there was a project due, and someone's like the guy writing Genesis just went, oh crap, I need another couple of chapters. What do I do? And just takes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, the flood story. So I was introduced to the flood story as a comparison to the Bible. Therefore, because we all know if more than one witness reports the same thing, that means an event didn't happen, right, Michael?
That's what well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely interesting because I think and like what Jason was saying, it does have that ring of truth to it, but it's like coming from a standpoint of a people group that has a very different set of values, and so like the things that stands out to them, the things that they remember are different. And so like even in the beginning here, it says he brought us a tale of the days before the flood, which is like, even the way that's saying, it's telling you like everybody knew that there was this flood, which was obviously in much more recent history to them, but still, if it's beyond their lifetime, or the lifetime of their parents, grandparents, like that knowledge can vanish very quickly. And when you get to like the account, it's like very different from the Bible account as far as like the specific details, but it has the same, it's got the same interesting fact that like the numbers are different, but it's the same sort of things. Like basically it's like they knew, they're like, I can't remember exactly what the details are, but all of the numbers, like in the measurements for the flood and the ark, they were all symbolic. And so then they were like, oh, I had something to do with sevens. And then they're like, yeah, like seven levels.
Right.
Whereas like in the Bibles, you have a 6-1 ratio, but the levels are 3 levels. So it's like you can see how they were like at the same things.
Along the Euphrates, they have a version of a boat that is used. And so the dimensions, the reason why it's square is because they still to this day, sometimes in Iraq, will make these boats that look like these giant baskets that they do make waterproof by putting bitumen and pitch on. Like they still construct them that way, so it resembles one of their boats. Whereas in the Bible, it's actually not. The ark, Noah's Ark, is not a boat. It's just a floating box. It's made like it has no way of steering or moving. Cassandra, let's bring you in because you actually did you finish it, by the way, to get to the end?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think on just the literary level? Before we get into, it's the same as mine.
I don't know. I kind of felt the same way when I read Odysseus the first time, as I kind of wonder why the story revolves around, like, why is he the hero, I guess. But I guess, hero doesn't need to mean, like, good, I guess, or something.
Because he was a king, and he was the only one that could afford to have somebody write down the stuff he says.
Look, he defeated Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest, and he met Utnapishtim the faraway, who lives on the edges where no one else was able to get to. Yeah, we're live streaming. Luke, if you want to talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh, join us. But if you don't want to talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh, no thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, just as well, I would say, if we're talking about as literature, I really enjoyed it. When I first read the Bible, I was actually surprised because it was far more grounded and less like a epic myth than I was hoping it would. I love the Bible, but it is not told like a myth.
Luke, this is relatable, man. Just wait. I just got through saying this story, it happens in every single one of us. It's in your heart.
But then I love the epic quality of it. Like the boom of the beginning of it, the way that it will tell stories it's in a way where it was supposed to be performed. And you can get to you can find some guy did musical versions of it, and I just love those
musical versions of Gilgamesh. Oh, the ones you sent. Him playing.
Where he plays with a giant Babylon. I'm not going to play it because oftentimes that'll get taken down. But it's like with 5 foot. Yeah. It's a 5 foot tall harp that has like a noise to it, and he's like crying out. It's pretty incredible.
Yes, it was also featured in one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, that's right. That's right. About the two guys.
The Darmok episode. Yeah.
What is the line the guy always says?
Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
Yes.
Shaka when the walls fell.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I'm
There's
going.
well, that one part too. I was going to say when I mean, I don't know if it's something you wanted to say for later, but you read the prologue, and it reminded me of that psalm. You know, I think people have made that reference to that before. The psalm, because it says, where does it say that? Climb upon the wall of Uruk, walk all along it. I say, regard the foundation, terrace, and examine the masonry. Is it not burnt? Is it not burnt brick and good? The seven sages laid the foundations. It reminded me of Psalm 48:12. Walk about Zion and go all around her, count her towers, mark well her bulwarks, consider her palaces, that you may tell it to the generation following.
Hi,
For
Kurt.
this is God.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
How do I look today?
What's up, man?
Great.
I just shaved.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree, Jason. So one of the other places it gets brought up is that there's bits that sound a lot like Ecclesiastes about death, and there's. Oh, did I lose you for a second? Am I frozen? No, it was
I
just.
think Jason,
It
is
was
your
just
mic
Jason.
working?
Okay, good.
Is it working?
Yeah, you were just a robot for a second, but everyone else was so still that I thought it was me and not. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of biblical parallels, so it gets used a lot. And I do think that some of the biblical writers are making reference to multiple things. And that's part of why I wanted to talk about it, because it's only really used to dismiss the biblical ideas as opposed to saying, okay, how is it responding to this literature? How is it dealing with it?
David, I have a question
Yes,
about.
sir.
So, do you believe the cosmology of presented in Genesis is related to the Epic of Gilgamesh?
I wouldn't. So there is a bit, we will get to that, where I think specifically the creation of Adam is related in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Genesis 3, the fall, certainly, the flood, the Tower of Babel, and the Nephilim. These are all the things we're going to talk about.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Let's start with some images, actually. I
And,
don't know if you guys looked up images.
I was going to
No.
ask if we're, on top of using official canonized text in the Tanakh, if we're going to use any of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
We are. So I will be referring to things in the Dead Sea Scrolls collection, specifically Enoch and the Book of Giants. But we'll get there. Okay, sharing this. This is what images of Gilgamesh look like if you find things from the time period, like, which is not mentioned in the text, but sometimes you get how quickly he runs and goes across the land, that he is a giant. Okay, so in their depictions of him, I just love this image. It looks like me and my cat, right? Just these beards too, with the like curls to it. I just love it.
Was that common in the Near East?
That style of beard, yeah. And
Either that, or it's like, it's just like, how like the first like when kids are learning how to draw, and then like the first kid learned how to do hair a certain way, and so like that's the way they all drew beards or whatever, because somebody figured out how to do that way. And
if you're looking at his hair, it's very, very clear that it's supposed to be very, very curly.
yeah,
And I think it's almost like dreads, like he's super old. It's coming
but
down.
it may be more stylized in the art,
Yes.
in the artwork, than it was in reality.
yes. I like the image though. They're semi cherub looking guys, which you can see on the image on the right. They also have those beards, because you can find those images of those guys.
And the lion's mane is also of a similar quality.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a curly lion mane, but that would be fun.
This, I think, is important because we're going to talk about, there's another character named Enkidu. And Enkidu is not described. Yeah, see, people are already getting ahead of us. Nimrod,
Who here has read the Epic of Gilgamesh before?
Sorry, what was that, Kurt?
I was asking, raise your hand if you've read the Epic of Gilgamesh before.
Everyone here has read it for this.
No, I mean before this.
I started it one time.
Like just doing it for fun on your own time.
I love the honesty. Love the honesty.
I think I read it once, I think.
I may have read portions of it when I was in like elementary or middle school for like a history project, but
yeah,
I've never completed that.
So then these are images of what Enkidu looks like. Again, the beard, but he's never described this way in the text, but he is oftentimes depicted as having horns. Okay, having horns like an ox. Oftentimes, characters are described as being like bulls or oxen. When they fight, it looks like bulls fighting. Then here, let me just do a quick summary of the story, just based on the contents. Okay, so the beginning is the introduction, which we already went through, the prologue. Then the coming of Enkidu. That's basically Gilgamesh is unstoppable, and he's taken all the ladies for himself and fighting people, and no one can stop him. So people cry out to the gods, and they make a guy who can fight him. And the guy who fights him is going to be Enkidu. So this is the guy who will fight him. We'll get to a description of him in a second, because I think that's where some of the Genesis stuff is in there too. Then after they fight, they become friends. Guys, I have a question. I think Jason is laughing because he already knows what my question is going to be. How close of friends do you think they are?
Intimate friends.
Intimate friends?
What is this? What is this?
They hold hands a lot.
Do you think that they made out?
They made out. Oh my gosh.
Probably not.
How was that? Why did you say I was going to know this question?
Well, because you smiled when I said, how close of friends do you think they are? Because they oftentimes will describe it as that you will love him like a woman.
Not a really close relationship.
Yeah. I saw, even when Gilgamesh knows that Enkidu is coming for him, he has a dream that he sees an axe, and he says, and I loved it like a woman, which could be physical love. And then also, then he has another dream, and it's a star falling from heaven. And when the star falls from heaven, then he loved it like a woman. And the word for axe in the original Babylonian is a word that's almost identical to a word for a prostitute.
How is that normally read? Because with older texts, is that I mean, how would you express that sort of love? Is that just a common way of expressing that, or are you actually saying this is like? Because I mean, it says that about David and Jonathan too, that they love David says of Jonathan, my love of Jonathan surpasses the love of women. But I don't read that in like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, David was kind of deficient in loving women. So, I mean,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I honestly, you can probably say, okay, so
Bathsheba.
Yeah, he was not good to her.
Yeah, that's true.
Not until later, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess so.
But
to be fair, David did have a lot of stress in his life.
Yeah.
I love that. That is my favorite excuse. He had a lot of stress in his life.
He did.
Look, if you were the second king, you were very high strung, you know.
I think I mean, it's honestly, it's like, it's not justification for it, but it was just like, that was incredibly common in like all cultures.
Right.
Up until Judaism and Christianity spoke out against it a little more explicitly, but like, even to the Roman Empire and beyond, it was they had their weird thing about like it was better to be on one half of the equation than the other, but
Yes.
it did. But the sex of your partner wasn't so important.
I
If
mean,
people look into this, this is one of the things that comes up a lot. And it was also oftentimes very common within military situations, like the Spartans would oftentimes have sex with each other. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess you
Well,
fight better, right? The one you love.
well, I think that's the thing too, because isn't that guy that manosphere guy Bronze Age pervert or whatever? Like
he's a grifter.
well, yeah, but either way, he's like a gay guy that's like it's manly to be gay, and there's like quite a few of those going around. Like it's like we're so manly we don't even touch women. Like
I mean, in for context, in Iran they have transition surgery for because they basically they want to minimize homosexuality by allowing people to transition or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Arab and Muslim world, especially, not great sexual ethics.
Yeah. Okay, moving
To
on.
this question, well, to your question, though, what I would have answered before he went down the more physical route was I would have said that the closeness to him is that he's actually seeing his brother, or almost seeing his own self. That's kind of the
Yeah, they
impression I got.
do get referred to as brothers to each
Yeah.
other. There's a deep friendship, but there is a little bit of language
Like he
which is
sees him as his
reminiscent.
counterpart, right? Like he sees him
Yeah.
as his other half almost, or
Yeah,
something like that.
Part's a good word because throughout the story, it seems like they are likening Enkidu to a woman. They keep using like feminine language, and then
Long hair like a
Whatever
woman.
that
He had
whatever
beautiful
that
hair.
photo was, where he
man.
had that do that ritual or something. It seems like it was a woman only thing that they were having him do.
Yeah. Look at that. Cassandra, she did her homework, everybody.
And then before Michael brought up the Manosphere guy, I was gonna say they seemed. I mean, I think they might be MGTOW. That was my sense when I was reading.
That's right. Because they have a bros before ladies
Yeah,
conversation.
There's a little red pilling going on, I thought,
Yeah.
throughout the beginning of the story.
Yeah, because the goddess of love is just like, hey, you want to have a relationship? And he's like, no, I just want to hang out with my best friend, okay?
Yeah, they're on their grind.
Okay, so after they wrestle at the entrance of a bridal chamber, that's how they meet. Okay, they wrestle with each other in the entrance of a bridal chamber. Then they're like fighting, and they're like, now we are friends.
I mean, what we are skipping over the whole like part of Enkidu's development, because that's an interesting thing, is because he is civilized by a woman from the city.
Yes.
So, and then prior to that, he's running around with the wild animals and
okay, Michael, I'm gonna stop you right now because we will get to that.
Okay,
that is one of the sections I'm gonna want to sit on.
Yep.
Okay, so after they become friends, then they go and they fight an ogre or demon, or however you want to say it, who is called Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest. Not in any of the descriptions of him, but in depictions of him, he has a face made of intestines, just for fun. So you see the intestine face here and here, entrails.
Why is that? That's
Is
so
that
interesting. When people do stuff like this, it's just incredibly fascinating to me.
Yeah. He's just
like they must have seen it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you think it was intentionally intestines?
Yeah, it's supposed to be entrails. They describe it that way in a couple of places.
I like that one on the bottom right. It looks like
this guy.
I don't know.
This guy.
What? Yeah.
Pretty cool.
He looks like the guy, the Iron Maiden mascot, Eddie.
Oh yeah,
zombie guy.
It does. You will notice as well horns on Enkidu over here, horns on Enkidu over here. Though on this one, they both seem to have it, but horns were also used as like crowns and stuff like that. Then after they defeat Humbaba, then the goddess of love, Ishtar, is super turned on and wants to marry Gilgamesh. But Gilgamesh is like, no, you're the goddess of love, and we all know love is actually fading. Like love, you just because it's lust, right? You're just gonna want to hook up with someone else again and again and again. So you're not even gonna want to be with me. So no. And then she gets so upset that she sends the bull of heaven, and they fight the bull of heaven, which sometimes is depicted as a bull, sometimes as these weird cherub-like creatures, which are winged, the face of a man but with horns. Again, with those dreadlock beards. And then after that event, Ishtar is shamed, so she demands that one of them be killed. And because Enkidu is number 2, he is killed. He dies. Gilgamesh becomes super sad and goes to search for immortality. And there's one guy who seems to have good advice as to where immortality might be found. And that is Noah. Noah in this story is named Utnapishtim, the faraway, because he lives really far away, guys. He lives on the edge of the world. So he goes and speaks to Utnapishtim, the faraway, tells the story of the flood, and then he finds out you're sorry, I get to live forever because I saved the world from the flood, whereas you're not. You didn't. So sorry, you're just going to die like a person. But there's one last chance you have, which is, and I don't have any images of it, there's a plant at the bottom of the abyss, of the deep. And if you can find this plant, it will give you eternal life. He pulls up the plant, but a snake steals it from him. And so, sorry, he just goes home and he's going to die, but it's okay because everyone will remember you because of this awesome epic. So his immortality is the epic. End of story.
That's just so fascinating. Like, that's what I mean. That's what's so great about this story is just like, who would write that this day? It's just, I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe I'm sure there people are, but it's just
I-
such a great
I'm
ending.
noticing a theme of like difference a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like a literary theme of change, or like
Yeah.
well, like so, and let's not labor this point too much. But do you know who Gilles Deleuze is?
I don't think I do. Just say the connection, and
But
I will
basically
pretend
the
it's
idea
your
is
idea.
in terms of literary analysis, there's a lot of repetition, but um not rhyme but sorry, rhyming but not repetition.
Right.
Okay. Because so like it's sort of similar to a lot of other hero myths, um but there's obviously an idea at the end of like ultimately, even though you're dead, there's still going to be um you're still going to be remembered and commemorated.
Right. Yeah, connection with the Greek epics. Even the connection to the Greek epics and that they go to the underworld. That's kind of where Utnapishtim is. He has to go across like an abyss of
And the
death.
thing is, in Hades, to my understanding, it's not really like the Christian. It's not really like the Christian understanding of hell.
No, it's
It's not
it's
even close.
no, it wouldn't. Hades, it would be like Sheol in the Bible. Like it's the grave.
Well, the
Everyone,
Jewish understanding of the afterlife is itself a pretty messy topic.
yes. Did I miss anyone's favorite parts or anything that they want to add about
I mean,
anything I missed from the story portion before we get into the Genesis connections?
I mean, are we gonna dig more into the story of Gilgamesh, or are we just because there's a bunch of stuff in there that we like briefly ran over, like the whole Enkidu thing and with the harlot and the what Gilgamesh says to Ishtar when she's trying to hook up with him. Like his whole speech to her is just
Yeah.
amazing too. There's all that stuff.
Let's
Are
get in.
we going to go through kind of slow? Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah, let's get into a little bit of that, shall we?
Yes.
Who would like to read?
Yeah, read, but with an epic voice, Kirk. That's important. Okay.
You made him. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
You're doing great. That's
Okay.
perfect.
You made him, O Ururu. Now create his equal. Let it be as like him, as his own reflection, his second self. Stormy heart for stormy heart. Let them content and leave Uruk in quiet.
Okay, pause. That was great. That was excellent, Kirk. Okay, so there is a complaint made about Gilgamesh because he's taken all the ladies. So they need him to have a partner. Okay, a partner that will be his second self, which you guys are all saying is a friendship thing. I totally accept. But then the description of making him sounds to me like it's Adam, for lack of a better term.
Wait,
Okay.
so
Go ahead.
this person is Adam that he's creating, right? The equal.
This is the creation of Enkidu.
Yeah.
I mean,
I got the same impression. It was Adam, Edom, Esau. There's all these different things you can draw on with that. He's a man of clay, the man of earth.
Well, it's interesting, when we do this comparison thing or whatever, because I talked to David about this a long time ago, in a random thing, like, it talks about the flood, and the flood is like, I take it to be global. I think you have to really bend the text. You have to say they were really ignorant to make it a local thing, whatever. So, it seems like it's a global thing and it's a once thing. It's God saying never again. But that's like the only thing that he says never again about. And there are all these kind of like, obviously there's like a pattern of these echoes of these events throughout the story of the Bible. And I think that, there's no reason to say like it has to be the time. Like Adam was a man made out of the dirt. Yeah, maybe somebody else can make another man out of the dirt or whatever. or it's even interesting, because it's like when people say like who is Cain's wife or whatever, and like the most logical thing is his sister, but there's literally nothing that prevents God from also putting Cain to sleep and taking a piece out of his side and using that to make a wife. Like there's no reason why that, as far as the text goes, that was the precedent that was set. So,
Right. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like some of these stories may be, if there's an oral history to it, someone recollecting similar stories and getting interesting comparisons to it. So it's interesting because this also could be Cain and Abel, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are destined to fight, and it will be the death of the guy from the pastures, where there's some people have said that the two men represent civilization and the wild as well.
Could that be Jacob and Esau?
Jacob and Esau. There's going to be some elements of that without a doubt.
Well, there is an interesting. I mean, when I would say, clearly it's setting it after the flood. So, but because there are those echoes of things, it's interesting because the people complain at the beginning, like, shouldn't a king be a shepherd to his people? And, Cain, like Cain through his descendants, you look at that thing and it's like Cain was the farmer and Abel's the shepherd, but it kind of switches with his relatives, and it's the descendants of Cain that become the shepherds and the tent dwellers and all that. So it's this thing of, when you kill something, you become that thing in a weird way.
I thought Cain built a city though.
Yeah, but his descendants, because his descendants are the father of all those who
Livestock.
keep
Yeah.
herds and dwell in tents. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and Joseph points this out because it's Jabal and Jubal and Tubal Cain, and all of their names are based off of Abel. So it was like this: the family was saying, like, remember Abel? He was the good one. We killed him. We shouldn't have done that. Like the
Everything is
family
heaven.
remembering.
Yeah. Everything is heaven. Yeah. Wow.
Cassandra, will you read the next section?
At the top or no?
We're in the middle. It's the middle
Oh.
In
section.
an epic voice, please.
In an epic voice or a fairy tale voice, like you are
Sure.
reading it to a child at the edge of the bed.
Okay. So the goddess conceived an image in her mind, and it was of the stuff of Anu, of the firmament. She dipped her hands in water and pinched off clay. She let it fall in the wilderness, and noble Enkidu was created. There was virtue in him of the god of war, of Ninurta himself. His body was rough, he had long hair like a woman's. It waved like the hair of Nisaba, the goddess of corn. His body was covered with matted hair like Samugons, the god of cattle. He was innocent of mankind, he knew nothing of the cultivated land.
So there's an importance there. He was innocent of mankind. There's a couple of references of him being innocent. Very important. Michael, I just think it would be funny if I made. So he's made out of clay. He's living in the wilderness, and this part, I don't know what your guys' experience was, but a guy, this for whatever reason made sense to me, and it made me laugh. That it made perfect sense to me. Michael, for whatever reason, it will make me laugh the most if you read the last section.
Okay. My son, in Uruk lives Gilgamesh. No one has ever prevailed against him. He is strong as a star from heaven. Go to Uruk, find Gilgamesh, extol the strength of this wild man. Ask him to give you a harlot, a wanton from the temple of love. Return with her, and let her woman's power overpower this man. When next he comes down to drink at the wells, she will be there, stripped naked. And when he sees her beckoning, he will embrace her, and then the wild beasts will reject him.
So
pretty
why I
raunchy in
laughed
here.
sorry, go ahead, Kirk.
I was just gonna say, getting pretty raunchy in here.
Yeah. So the wild man, Enkidu, or how did you say it, Cassandra? I like the way you said it.
Enkidu?
Enkidu. Okay. Enkidu, he is freeing the animals that are caught by the trappers and frees them from the hunters and all that stuff. So they're like, okay, we want to catch some deer. What do we do? And this is the plan. We get a prostitute, make her be naked. If they have sex, then the animals won't want to hang out with her. And for whatever reason in my mind, I was like, that makes perfect sense.
It does make sense. I don't know that I can put my finger on it, but I would really like to explore this idea more because it makes perfect sense to me too. And it seems like it happens repeatedly in different stories.
What? Say it again, because something cut out for me. I didn't hear what you said.
If you sleep with a woman, then the animals won't want to play with you anymore, Michael.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess this is like what, like a puberty or something like that, like an adulthood that's happening for him, kind of. Like he's leaving
I
behind.
guess, yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I wonder what biblical parallels exist for this. Or
Well,
if
I was
any.
thinking it made me think of Samson just because he's like giving up this like power he has, this certain connection he has for a woman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
you can make a connection to Samson.
I think the Nazarite is a good parallel.
You know what's a weird one that pops out to me is so it's at the drinking hole and she's stripped naked, and it reminds me of Jacob, where he strips the branches and puts them in front of the watering hole when the animals come to mate.
What a fun time I'm having, guys.
What,
But you
what
know,
were you
that's
say,
interesting
Jason?
because that is like a. I mean, I don't know. People debate about it, but that is a thing where people say it's like some kind of sympathetic magic or something like that he's employing a little bit. So, and what happens is like some of the animals are like really drawn to it, and the other ones, stay away or whatever. Like when he doesn't put the sticks out. So, there's some weird things there. But I was also the description there for Enkidu in the second paragraph. It was making me think of Samson with the long hair, the god of war, Esau for the hairiness, and then also
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar, yeah, eating the with the cattle and the mattedness of the hair. Like
He's got a mange to
interesting.
him.
Well, and that's a really interesting one because this is like part of their canon, right?
Yeah.
So like Nebuchadnezzar would have been like, "I'm becoming Enkidu," if he was conscious in his mind or whatever. Like, well, that's really who he turns into, isn't it?
Well, when Nebuchadnezzar refers to seeing a godlike creature as being like a star from heaven, and that is also how Enkidu is described. That in the dream where Gilgamesh is warned that someone who could be his rival will come and fight him, he sees it as being that way.
Do you believe that was an intentional choice on the part of the authors?
So I think the biblical authors in some of okay, now we're just getting to it's Absalom, by the way, to Emily. I think that there's two things at play. Number one, there is a common story that is being misremembered by the Babylonians. And number two is I think some of the biblical story is directly written to poke the eyes out of the pagans.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But the thing with the star from heaven, I mean, I think it could be intentional, it could be a misrepresentation of the story. That seems like a pretty common analogy people could use across cultures. But yeah, I mean, given if it was a not significant passage of time, I could see how that got lost in telephone. I was just curious what Jason.
So Kirk, why is someone described as being like a star from heaven?
I mean, I could see that exists just as a parallel of like someone's greatness or someone's majesty without necessarily being a sort of subconscious reference. But
the way that someone is described as being like a star in both the Bible and in other literature is because it emanates light. That's saying that it's like a godlike creature.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does make sense if you're considering the religious context of the stories.
Yeah.
But I was just curious what Jason was saying, because Jason was saying he heard the biblical parallel, but I couldn't hear him on my end.
Oh, I don't know that I have a biblical parallel. I was just saying, like, I mean, this is just a story with like Mowgli and Tarzan and all those different wild man figures. You have the man of clay, you have the earthly man, so that's just Adam. I mean, I guess you could say it's kind of like, I mean, there's a weird way. I mean, that's what I mean. It strikes me as just profoundly true, and I'm not sure quite why or how to get at it. But there's a way, like, once that it might have something to do with innocence and virginity, and when that is offered up, then you lose the connection with that, because the whole land that Enkidu inhabits is like a virgin wild land. It's uncivilized, like it hasn't been tapped. And then once he is captured or enraptured, whatever, by this harlot, like he's basically taken captive by her beauty, then I mean, it basically does sound kind of like the Samson story. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that.
Would you say it's like the heroes? Would you say it's like the hero's journey archetype?
I don't know that it's that. I think it's just, there's a way, like, there through that innocence I think you have that connection with nature and wildness, and then once you which is all like kind of has a whole feminine aspect to it as well. But then there's it there's just a lot of that's what I mean. There's a lot of stuff that's like going through my mind that feels slightly related, but it's not directly related. Like the whole Green Knight story seems kind of similar. The way Nazarites are, like if you're gonna go into the wild and you're gonna let your hair grow long, and you're gonna like go dwell in the wilderness for a time, like don't touch the grapes. There's a touch not thing going on. Like the thing with the like unicorns even too. It's like there's this pure like what like unicorn mystical creature, and it's like if you touch one, that's it, like game over. Like it's just like it's not good. There's there's a virginal aspect that like needs to remain, I guess, like that you don't um that you're cautious of or something. And it's like he didn't hold on to that or something like that. I don't know. It
I
kind of
could
Okay.
see I could
Yeah.
see.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Go on. I was just gonna say I could see a lot of parallels with Joseph Campbell here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the
One.
examples that's always used hero's journey stuff. We are going to continue in the text about Enkidu, and I want you guys, because you guys have all read Genesis a bunch of times, I want you to think about the fall of Adam and Eve and see what parallels you think you might see. I
And
will
Jason
read
Reed.
it so that you can focus, and also because this is the sexiest part. There he is. Now, woman, make your breasts bare. Have no shame. Do not delay, but welcome his love. Let him see you naked. Let him possess your body. When he comes near, uncover yourself and lie with him. Teach him, the savage man, your woman's art. For when he murmurs love to you, the wild beasts that share his life in the hills will reject him. She was not ashamed to take him. She made herself naked and welcomed his eagerness. As he lay on her, murmuring love, she taught him the woman's art. For 6 days and 7 nights they lay together, for Enkidu had forgotten his home in the hills. But when he was satisfied, he went back to the wild beasts. Then, when the gazelle saw him, they bolted away. When the wild creature saw him, they fled. Enkidu would have followed, but his body was bound as though with a cord. His knees gave way when he started to run. His swiftness was gone, and now the wild creatures had all fled away. Enkidu was grown weak, for wisdom was in him, and the thoughts of a man were in his heart.
Jesus, not kosher.
Wow.
I mean, I could see a lot of parallels with the fall of Adam and Eve here.
Okay, let's do one at a time. Kirk, you give me one, and then
Um,
Cassandra, you're going to be asked next. I'm
I
going to go.
mean, yeah, the idea of like revealing your body and not and God can see through you or see through your clothing. Um,
That's
I
great.
could see.
Okay, that's good. That's good. One. Cassandra, give me another one.
Wait, for what?
Parallels with the fall. With
Oh. I guess maybe the distance between man and nature now.
yeah, there's a good one. The distance between man and nature. Michael, give me a parallel.
Well, seeing the thing is definitely part of it. And Enkidu is a hairy animal-like person. Humans are really the only like creatures capable of nudity in the
Mhm.
sense. So it's a very different thing.
Jason, what's a parallel you see?
Probably the end part too. For wisdom was in him. He took of the tree, knowledge of good and evil type thing. I mean, I don't think wisdom. I think wisdom is the tree of life, but I think they're kind of similarly the same thing. Uh,
Yeah.
like, yeah, when you take it for yourself, then it's kind of the wrong thing. But that's kind of what it reminds me of at the end. Like he ate that fruit.
And it's not here, but after this, he gets clothed in he begins wearing clothing. So he's naked, he sees her, she's told not to be ashamed, right? So she's naked but not ashamed. They sleep together for 6 days and 7 nights. That's interesting. And then Enkidu forgets his home in the hills. He goes back to the wild beast, and it's as though his body is not working anymore. There's like a weakness that's in him now. He had grown weak, for wisdom was in him, and the thoughts of a man were in his heart.
You know, before this too, I don't think it ever mentions if Enkidu or Nkaidu if he speaks. Maybe it's just
Oh, that's a good point.
but yeah, he doesn't. He's not talking. He's just running around with animals until after this.
Yeah, he's like a beast. And he's the man of, this is how the man of clay gets wisdom in him. Like it seems too much, like too many parallels.
It is also interesting that the animals fleeing from him, that's a change in the Bible. It's the change after the fall, that the animals will now be afraid of him and flee. So it's like him being a sort of a new Adam has this connection with the animals, but then he becomes post-flood human man in a sense, and then it's like they don't recognize him the same way. They flee from him.
The next line is, so he returned and sat down at the woman's feet and listened intently to what she said. You are wise, Enkidu, and now you have become like a god. Mm-hmm. That is the next thing she says, is she says you've become like a god because you have wisdom in you now. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll go back a second. And then also eternal life at the end, I was mentioning, is stolen by a snake. He goes down. It's not fruit this time. This time it's a, what is it?
Flower?
It's a seaweed or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
It's a flower, a seaweed. It's like a rose at the bottom of the abyss.
I just assumed it was seaweed because it's at the bottom of the ocean or whatever.
But it says it has thorns, and it's a flower.
Yeah.
But it's a plant.
Are we talking about the physical ocean, or do you think this is like a metaphysical, like otherworldly type?
It seems like it's regular water because he ties stones to his legs to sink to the bottom to grab the plant.
There's that idea though, that impulse, right? Like where, people think that if you can really, really get to the depths of like, not just your subconscious, but even like the depths of the darkness of the soul or something, you'll find this little blossoming, life-giving thing or something like that. So that's what I mean, where this story just strikes me as true. It's like, why wouldn't you write something like that?
Right.
Like, I'm seeking eternal life. Obviously, if I'm like, that just seems like what you would do. You search the heights of heaven and the depths of the earth. You go down to the deepest place you can go. And
you go to the edge of the world. You talk to the guy at the edge of the world.
Yeah, man. Yeah. There's parts of this story also that remind me of, like, there's different parts that remind me of George MacDonald's. A few different of his stories too, but one of them was the Golden Key, and like there's a part where he goes to the edge of the world and he gets to the end, and he's at the sea. It's basically the ocean, because you're at the edge of the world. There's nothing else but just the ocean waters. And he there's a part where it says something about like he has to lay down in this bath, and there's like all these little white blossoming flowers, like even like at that point there, and he says something like George MacDonald says something strange. I've never been quite sure what to make of it, but he says like in that place, all the blossoming flowers are white. I'm not sure why he says that, other than maybe that's just the if you're going somewhere that's really, really dark, like if you take a walk through the woods at night, you'll notice the white flowers. Like you won't notice the other ones, because white's the first to give the light back, So maybe that's why he says something like that. When you're in the darkest place, the blossoming flowers are white. I don't know. There's just like interesting, weird little parallels like that.
It's like a metaphor for hope.
Yeah, maybe something. Oh.
I like this. Whose page is this now? Look, everyone is streaming it right now. So pick who you want to support, Chad.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get into some interpretive stuff because if Genesis was written and this story was already written down, then I think part of your Genesis 6, your Nephilim, would have been read that these characters are the heroes of old. That's actually the heroes of old is what Gilgamesh's name means. Gilgamesh means like ancestor hero. And he is this character that they would have worshipped like a god, would have seen as semi-divine, but from the perspective of the biblical authors, he's actually like demonic and evil. Which reminds me of part of what Cassandra was saying, where it's just like, why is this guy a hero? Right? At the very beginning of the story, he's raping women. He's like taking women before it's their time, killing whoever he wants.
This is the ancient Near Me. I mean, this is the ancient Near East. Remember?
Yeah, this is Iraq. This is the place where.
But there's a weird way though. Like even though he's not, well, I got the impression it wasn't really like applauding him for those things. It was kind of just purposely describing him as a tyrant, and that was the
Right.
need for Enkidu, right? Yeah. Because he doesn't. He's. To me, it seems like that's what I mean. There's a God aspect and a man aspect to every person. You're supposed to love God and love man, and he's in this godlike state where he's not connected to humanity in a way. So he's a tyrant over these people, and they're below him. And then once he meets this counterpart, this earthly man that he sees himself in, then it's like that's supposed to bring balance to this. But
Emily has a quote in the comments.
Kirk, read it for us.
He said, "All men will be sailors then, until the sea shall free them. But he himself was broken long before sky would open. Forsaken, almost human, he sank beneath your wisdom like a stone." By Len Cohen.
that's cool. Like that.
And is Mount Hermon referenced in Gilgamesh? I believe it is, yes. I believe they go to the top of Hermon. I believe that's where their pantheon is. Or am I mistaken?
Wow.
Okay, I want to. So I mentioned this before, Kirk, that the Book of Giants is a book found at the Qumran community, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, so one of the Dead Sea Scrolls is about the Nephilim. It's about the giants, and Gilgamesh and Humbaba are listed as Nephilim, as the fallen sons of God.
Yeah, I mean, I actually haven't read much of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I've read parts of some of them, but I don't know. It seems I should focus on the canonized Tanakh and some of its commentaries before getting
Yes,
down.
yeah, I would agree. Along with that, Jason, you were frozen for a second, but it looked like you were saying something.
Oh no, I'm good. I just like Humbaba. I think we should bring him back.
Humbaba. I don't know why. It's just so good. I like it so much as a name.
And do you think there's any connection between Mount Hermon and Hermes? Or was I reading too much into it?
Let's I'll Google that while you.
I did a lot of work on Mount Hermon at one point, but I'm not on it right now, so I don't want to be focused on it. But yeah, so if you're reading how some people at certain points within Judaism understood characters like the Nephilim, they would have understood them as having angelic or divine, however you want to say it, parentage. Not God, not Hashem, but these sons of God is oftentimes how these earthly kings would be described. So here, let me bring.
It's interesting because I think it's interesting even like with the like with the Greek myths and stuff. Pretty much all of them, you always have these kind of like these different like generations of gods, and then you have these sort of divine and human interactions. But just the way that people hold like great people in regard, or even the way that like kings were always thought of as gods. You could even, if people are skeptical to have like a supernatural aspect to it, I wonder how much of it even is just that, like you have these guys at the beginning of the genealogies that are like living for 900 years, and then it goes down and down and down over time. But it's like if you're the guy that's 100 years old and your grandfather's 400 years old and he looks like a muscle man, and you're like starting to age, it's like you just think like, are these gods? Like it could be like even just the genetic power of the primordial man or something.
Well, so I think this should be talked about because this relates to in the Bible when Og's bed is described. I pulled this up from the Lord of Spirits podcast. So this is Father Stephen DeYoung. And this is a quote from him, but he also in other places says, I wasn't able to find it, that we have found ritualistic beds that were sometimes included in temple complexes where by having sex with a cult prostitute on there, you believed, well, here, I'll just read this quote. So what you find in the Babylonian sources in particular is, for example, on that same Sumerian kings list, we mentioned that list, the Apkallu, for each king before the flood. After the flood, each of the kings is 2/3 Apkallu, 1/3 human. And you say, how can you be 2/3, 1/3? Well, if you have 3 parents, then you can. And Gilgamesh, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, is 2/3 divine, 1/3 human. Sometimes in some cultures, by the way, just so you know, this was reversed, where it would actually be the temple slave or prostitute or priestess who would embody a goddess, and the king would, in which case he would sort of have 2 mothers and 1 father. So you get that with Gilgamesh being an example of that. That happened there, but this is the kind of ritual activity. So this is idolatry, sexual immorality in the extreme. So it's sort of saying this is how bad it got before the flood.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Then this is realized looking at the way it's described in the text. No one will say this because it makes them too squeamish, including Father Stephen or whatever. But there's plenty of evidence that this happens in real life, because you have, so the question and debate is like sons of God. Who is sons of God? Is that humans or is that divine? Well, it can.
Wait. Are you implying, Michael, that
What?
people who are the kings of the modern day all went to some island where there was a temple and there had ritualistic sex? Is that what you're implying, Michael?
No, I don't know, not necessarily, but I mean, well, this
Because
is
they did.
Okay, sure, they may have, but this is a solution that to me make it seem like God would be willing to say, shut it down. Is you have sons of God. Adam is a son of God, right? And then he's a man, and who's the daughters of man? That would be like Adam's daughter. And so then you have son of God taking the daughters of man. So and then what's the percentages of like that the DNA there? Mom and dad plus dad again is 2/3. 2/3 God and 1/3 man.
Yeah, but there seems
I mean,
to be
that happens, especially among certain populations.
yeah.
So But and it's weird even because when you look at all the stuff forbidden in Leviticus, to me it seems like these are attempts at like, because what did they know? They knew agriculture, they knew crossbreeding, and if you want to amplify traits, you're going to reintroduce the same genes into a hybrid.
Like they do with dogs, where
Yeah.
you'll get super purebred dogs, and you get them purebred by making them.
But then they have all these genetic deficiencies, or even like, because we have giants, and usually they are plagued by a lot of severe health problems because their genes are too limited. So,
And trying to take steroids won't help.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jason has a question.
Yeah, Jason, I can see in the private chat. I just noticed you can bring
Oh,
on your
that's
friend. It's totally cool.
It's all right. He said I was texting him privately, so I was a little distracted too. But he's yeah, he said he's kind of spent for the night, so I don't think he's going to join. But he's tuning in and listening.
Okay, cool.
He's got some. I mean, I could read some of his text though if you want. I don't know if you might be able to comment on it more. He said he was watching, and he said he's had an essay on Tubal-Cain and how Noah's wife is connected to his line in the Hebrew folklore and is one of the daughters of men that seduced the sons of God, and is one of the sources for where we get mermaids and sirens. I'd never heard that before, but
yeah,
that was also really interesting.
What is her name? Name?
Yeah, it's something weird. I can't remember.
Nama. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking the perspective that, so what I kind of think is, if you take every single culture's images of their kings and their gods, they would have, and their heroes, kings and heroes, they would have seen them as divine human hybrids. Your Gilgamesh, your what's his name, Hercules, right? You have all these stories. It exists in every single culture where there are these giants who are divine human hybrids. And if you take this into the biblical text, because it says these were the heroes of old, but that's connected with the image of why the flood was necessary. So it's an image of how evil, like how bad things got. These people that everyone else thinks of as their heroes are actually demons, right? The people that people think of, and I would connect this with what Michael is saying. The people right now that our culture thinks of as heroes are horrible human beings. Our leaders and our celebrities, our gods, are horrible. They are. Yeah.
I want to introduce one more idea that also adds another element to this. And going back to Enkidu, because when you have, like in Genesis 3, and you have the serpent, and it's just saying he's more crafty than any of the other beasts of the field, and it says like God put Adam in the garden, and then he formed these beasts of the field and brought them to the man. And so it's just putting the serpent in that category, but he's wise and he can talk and he can do all these things. And, people want to say like, oh, it was a snake possessed by the devil or whatever. But then when you look at all these other things, what do you see over and over with these pantheons of gods? You see like anthropomorphized animals, you got Anubis and all the Egyptian ones, a dog, a bird, a snake, whatever, with a human body. And so then you have like Enkidu, who's like an atom or whatever, running around with all these animals. And so then it's like, and definitely, by the time, like it's in Greek too. Not the gods like proper. The gods are always having sex with animals. Like Zeus has sex with like 9,000 different kinds of animals. He has sex with like an ant for one and spawns some creature. Like he turns himself into a goose. He turns himself into like a turtle or whatever. So like, so that's like we read like beasts of the field. But I mean, I'm thinking like, is that even what is that creature, at least prior to the flood, it's not what we think of when we think of a beast of the field. It's a more sophisticated thing. So possibly that's something that clearly has a physical body like a human, and is it reproductively compatible? Maybe so, So I don't know. It's another angle to explore it from.
Let me do a check-in with everyone to see if if there's any thoughts that people currently have that they want to share.
No, nothing that Michael hasn't said so far.
Awesome. Cassandra, let me do a check-in with you. Any thoughts? Anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I was just gonna ask, where were we again in the story?
We got back to the prologue, right?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to the prologue. Yeah, so the prologue is what we will be talking about. Because the prologue is an interesting bit because it's basically it's a summary of the whole book.
I got a question for you based on this idea, because we're talking kind of about like a little bit about the Nephilim and like these heroes of old and them being part God, or mostly God, mostly human. What do you think about Vishnu? Right? Isn't that?
I don't know enough about Vishnu.
But okay, from what I understand, there's Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu are the three, like the trinity of Hinduism. And I think Vishnu is something, usually, from what I understand, this is my very limited knowledge, is it's kind of like God incarnate. When the world kind of is at an imbalance, Vishnu will incarnate himself in some way. And it's weird, you kind of see a progression of him. I think in like the earlier stories, like at first he comes as like a turtle or something that comes out of the water. So it's kind of like coming out of the water, then he's a boar that's in like the wilderness. And then, but it's almost like there's a godlike aspect that comes into the world in human form or something like that.
Well, I know that in the Hindu scriptures that they also have a flood story, and it has the same number of people that go into the ark.
That's interesting.
Like, it's very common that 8 is the number. There's a couple of different numbers. It's not the same in the Epic of Gilgamesh, but in the Indian sources it is.
I don't know if it's necessarily. That's probably a bad. That might have been. Sorry, that might have been a bad connection for me to make. I don't know if Vishnu would be connected with like. I mean, there's a godly aspect, I think, to that, but I don't know if it would be. It's probably not good to connect it with the Nephilim, because the Nephilim seem to be more always referenced as giants. And is it in sorry if I'm repeating you. I was a little bit distracted. Is it in one of the? I feel like I remember reading in the book of Yasher once where it talked about the giants actually devouring people and eating. Like there was like.
Yeah, I know it's in Enoch as well, where they're cannibals.
Oh, it is. Okay, it's in Enoch. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it might also be in Jasher. I've never read, because as best I know, there's no real book of Jasher. There's like three, and not that there is a book of Enoch, but what I mean is like
book of Jasher.
Jasher is a much later fan fiction, whereas Enoch is an early fan fiction.
Yeah, but I mean, like I'm inclined, because I just like believing all that stuff anyway. I believe it was probably, there's real giants, all that stuff. But I mean, it is interesting. You do see like the weird symbolic parallels even today of stuff. Like, you can talk about like
there's a
giant
story about gigantic cannibal tribes. I was watching videos about it, and there's like I forget this woman's name, but she wrote a story where she wrote a little bit about it. But they say that they said it was like a cannibal giant tribe, and they chased them into a cave and then started a fire and then killed them. And that's like the legend. And they had red hair, supposedly. That was part of it too.
Yeah, it's oftentimes the giants are red haired.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah. Why is that? Like just because of fire or something?
I don't know, but look, the Mayans, like it's literally a universal. Like in Mexico, they're like, yeah, red-haired giants built the pyramids. You go, what?
How did they have? How did they know red hair was a thing in Mexico?
It was when Europeans
You
arrived.
know what? It does pop up. It does pop up in more populations than you think. But I think it's one of those things where, like, because it's a recessive gene, like if there's not a significant population, like it could randomly pop up because two people both have the recessive gene, but unless if the red-haired person like marries another person with the recessive gene or with red hair, it's gonna like go away real quick. Same thing with like blue eyes and stuff. It
So that
can
would
pop up randomly, but it's not. But
Yeah.
it's more common when everybody's got it.
that would be like the thing you were saying earlier about incest with sons of God and daughters of man kind of thing. Actually,
Oh, the recessive traits. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Concentration of that in a population.
Yeah.
Sometimes polydactylism, also the 6 fingers or 6 toes, which is in the Bible as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back to the epic, and I want to just highlight a couple of things which I see as connection to it. So 2/3 they made him God, 1/3 man. So you have this idea again that he's this semi-divine king. In Uruk he built walls. And if you get to the end, it says, "Is it not burnt brick and good?" So Uruk is Iraq, Iraq. It's that Uruk is just the way of saying Iraq. Okay, so it's Ur of the Chaldeans, which is where Babylon is, where we have found these ziggurat temple complexes, where people would call and have ritualistic sex with gods. So Ishtar is coming down to have sex with him, right? There's on one of these ziggurats the burnt brick and good, the city and the importance of it. All of these things to me seem to be sharing a common story with the biblical tales. Though what's also I think particularly interesting in the version of the flood in Gilgamesh is that in Gilgamesh it's 2 sets of gods, right? There's the god that wants to destroy humans. There's the gods that want to like there's destroy and save. And in the Bible, it's just one God, right? God has multiple characteristics, both divine justice and divine mercy in one individual.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like all the other mythologies. It's always like, yeah, there was a god that created all this stuff, but he's dead now. Like
he's long gone.
Yeah, and then it's always like this, and then this dualism or something or whatever. Like, but it's like, well, who's writing these stories? Seems a little propagandistic, you know. That's but.
I was watching a video where they're comparing flood stories, part of the one in Gilgamesh too, and it talked about a lot of the other stories were like they did the flood because people were too noisy or something.
That's what happens in Gilgamesh. It's like we can't get any sleep,
so they want to kill them all. But yeah, but I was thinking about that in terms of propaganda, because then by contrast, the Bible flood story is the only one where God tells the people to be fruitful and multiply, and all the other ones they're like, we need to cut the population down, and
we're annoyed. Yeah.
And it's
also,
bad.
in Gilgamesh, the gods are like starving because there's been no offerings when they're on the flood. So when the sacrifice is made in Gilgamesh, it says that the gods swarm the altar like flies. It's like they're starving spirits that are like, they need to be sustained by the humans.
That's interesting.
Fascinating image.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so some people think, I don't know, Cassandra, you may have come across this. Some people think that Gilgamesh, because he's known as being a great hunter who destroys Humbaba, that he is Nimrod,
Hmm.
because he's the king of Babel, right?
Yeah.
The king who makes the city of burnt brick, and he's described as a Gabor, and Gabor is sometimes considered to be a euphemism for Nephilim by some. By some.
The whole story is just, I mean, gosh, that's what I mean. It just strikes me as so true because why wouldn't you, especially when you're confronted with mortality or this natural man, this incarnate place that we're in, why wouldn't you try to build a tower to heaven? Because you're not only bound by this body, but you're bound by time and space and all the heavenly bodies. And so, like, why aren't you going to try to reach up there and get a little bit beyond them? And, like, you know, and so it just, that's what makes sense about this story to me. It's like you have that impulse in it, in every one of us here. There's like this weird thing inside of us where, like, there's a divine aspect. Like, is there a hereafter? Is there an afterlife? Are we godlike in some way? And then to have all these gods up there that are seemingly influencing your life. Like you're talking about, like the sun god. This one wants to judge you. This one wants to seduce you. All of that, and you're trying to not be subject to them in some way. It kind of it break free of
Mhm.
that uh, seemingly oppressive nature that they're, I guess, casting on us or something like that, on humanity. You have that story throughout all cultures. It's like there's this striving to get beyond that. I mean, I know we haven't got there that, but I think that's some of what the idea is when they the bull of heaven with that one
Yeah,
part. But
I actually pulled out this book because I checked. There are a few references to the Epic of Gilgamesh in the index here. It didn't seem like it was anything necessarily
What's the name of that book?
applicable. Worlds in
Worlds in
Collision.
Collision by Emmanuel Velikovsky.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, but I mean, he tried to it's interesting because there is this thing of like the physical astronomical events out there and like the bull of heaven, that's like it's the whatever the Taurus, the zodiac sign, and then all the other the planetary bodies are these different gods. And it's even like in Acts 19 when it talks about they have this image that fell from Zeus or from Jupiter,
Right,
as
right,
they
right,
call
right.
it, and it's like they're knowing this is like meteorite kind of object that's falling from the sky, and they're identifying the heavenly body that was either visible or it was at its literal like source where it came from. But then they're also still connecting it to like the personal reality of these gods that they fully expect to randomly show up for booty calls with you know pretty ladies or whatever. Like it's just so weird like how much, like, because we always want to be like the modern thinker always will be like, well, the ignorant primitive man you know saw these things and thought they were magic. And it's like, no, they knew that it was like a thing in the sky, but they also connected it to these other things. And so like when you read these stories or whatever, it's like it's a really tightly wound up like puzzle that you have to figure out all of what's really going on there. So
yeah, yeah, I think they were a lot smarter than we give them credit for sure. Like even,
Mhm.
I mean, all this stuff, even with like talking about the like Zeus or Hermes or Jupiter, all of that stuff. Um, I mean, it says right in Genesis, what is it? Genesis, is it verse 14, chapter 1? It's where it talks about God created these things, the stars and all the planets and everything for signs and seasons and times and years. And it's like that's all stuff that has influence on us.
mhm.
Like we do move through times and seasons, and even like where we know the moon affects the waters and our bodies being made of water. And so all these orbits that have gravitational pull, like they affect where we are in time and space and all this stuff. And it's like, and so you, if the study of those by ancient people, I think they were really more, not only studied them more maybe, but also kind of were in tune with them poetically, and then you kind of personify them, and then they become these deities with faces and personalities, and you see how they pull and influence man in one way or the other.
Jason, you were part of the stream. I know Cassandra was, where the Hebrew word for sun is Shamash,
Hmm.
is the same word that the Babylonians used to describe the god of the sun. Shamash, the glorious sun. Shamash appears in the Bible as the sun, and one of the places that we just hit in Samuel is Bet Shamash, so house of Shamash or house of the sun, which
I think
is
I remember you saying that in the last, the
yeah.
last email.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I had shared a video with David, it, where they found out they found an inscription somewhere near Nineveh with like dates, and it talked about like when they attacked the king of Israel, and they had the king of Israel's name, and then they just calculate a little bit back from that, and we can figure out when all this astronomical stuff happens, and basically figure out that like when Jonah shows up to Nineveh and he gives his message, there was like a full eclipse right there over the thing. So, these people are like worshiping sun gods and things like that. And then this prophet comes and gives this message. And then it's like they see their God get covered up, and the sky goes black and the whole city repents. So it's like,
Yeah.
but what does that mean? That means God orchestrated all the way back at the beginning. And then Jonah fighting and trying to not get there, and God's like, "Nope, I'm going to put you there. You're gonna be there at that moment," and it all happened. Yeah.
So I think one of this, Jason, when you were talking before, and I think this was connected a little bit with something Michael was saying as well. I was thinking you could read the Epic of Gilgamesh as like a Nephilim trying to redeem himself, like trying, like what do I do? How do I live forever? How do I make it back? Kind of a thing, like a fallen angel trying to figure it out. I'd watch that movie. That sounds like an okay movie to me.
I glitched out for a second. Yeah, last thing I heard was you could read the Gilgamesh as like a Nephilim trying to redeem himself.
Yeah, doesn't that sound like a movie you'd watch?
That sounds really good. Yeah, I would definitely watch that. Yeah, yeah.
What was it?
I mean, I loved that the Noah movie with Russell Crowe. That was great too. I feel like
it had good scenes. I'll give it that. I need to rewatch it.
What do you think the title of the movie would be?
I don't know, man. I mean, I actually just want a faithful retelling of the Epic of Gilgamesh because I think they'd made like one or two versions and they're just awful.
I wonder what name you could give it that would sound like super epic. Like
the Epic of Gilgamesh sounds pretty epic.
Yeah, but like Hollywood.
Your brother?
That's my brother. Whatever I would like to say before he mentions anything else that I don't associate with anything. I don't agree with anything he's about to say.
Is he older or younger?
He is older.
How many siblings do you have, by the way? I'm curious.
I have an older brother and a younger sister.
Okay.
And I think my brother is very bored because he's not a Christian. Is
he Hindu?
No. We were raised atheist Catholic. Who knows what he is? Michael, you can tell us what you are if you define.
How does he feel about Shamash?
The glorious son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Shamash hate sunscreen?
Are there more atheist Catholics or atheist Jews?
That is a good question.
Well, there's way more Catholics, so
I know,
I'd say
but I mean
probably
per capita relative to the population. Like compared to the Jewish population, how many are atheists compared to the technically Catholic population who are atheists?
Yeah. I would say about one of the things that I want is just if you listen to the audiobook, it is as long as a movie. Just do exactly what's there and just give me visuals along with exactly what the text is.
Yeah, and have it done by Sargon of Akkad.
Did you listen? Did you listen to the audiobook, Kurt? Is that what you're
No,
telling me?
no.
I'm going.
But
I'm going. I'm
That
going
would be
to.
fitting.
Yes. No, he did. It is Carl Benjamin doing the. I'm going to share a gift that my wife gave me, which is my wife gave me a chess set that is the Epic of Gilgamesh.
No way. That's
So
cool.
these are the pawns look like the tablets. This is what the tablets look like. Some of them that they found. Here's the Bull of Heaven. Oh, hi, Bull of Heaven. Look at that.
That's so cool.
Is that the horse?
Yeah, yeah, those like cherub things that they find in
That's supposed to be
Babylon.
tonight.
Yeah. Here's Gilgamesh with his lion. That's the king.
Is it Enkidu the Queen?
I wanted Enkidu to be the queen, but no, he's the castle. They made him the castle.
Oh, okay.
You mean
Who's the
Rock?
queen? Is it Ishtar?
Yeah, they made Ishtar. So this
Ah,
also
you
has,
gotta make. She's the queen of heaven. You gotta make her the queen.
yeah, yeah. And then what's this last one? And then Humbaba they did is like a weird dragon creature.
Humbaba's the bishop.
Yeah, Humbaba's the bishop.
That's interesting. How much was
I
that?
disagree with this decision. It's funny to have
How
things
much
to
did
be
that
like.
cost?
I don't know. I have not seen, but my wife
That must
got me
be
this, and
a
I was
small
just like, this is
fortune.
incredible.
That looks like a small fortune.
Yeah, it was given to me for my birthday, so I have no idea how much it cost. But as a result, I got a little. I have 2 Gilgamesh statues holding his kitty cat.
Nice. That's good. Do you kiss him at night before you go to bed?
Do you want demons, Jason? Seriously, you keep on pushing it with your
No, he
fairies.
makes Enkidu and he
Only
makes
because we're streaming on Jacob's channel.
he makes Gilgamesh and Enkidu kiss at night. That's what he does. Just
Oh yeah. Yeah. Don't kiss Ishtar. We know what happens to all her lovers.
Good night, Gilgamesh. That's,
How much of the stream has been actually dedicated to the text?
I think a good amount. Yeah, Connie makes a very good point. I do have mixed feelings because as a result, I kind of own idols. I guess I kind of do.
Is that
Yeah,
against Noahide Halaha?
I am not Noahide. Don't classify myself as such. I mean, I guess I try to follow. Anyway, this is neither here nor there.
Oh, shots fired. Just kidding.
It's okay. The queens, they just turned into Mary at some point, so those ones
Yeah.
are okay.
Thank you, Michael. That's beautiful.
I'm thinking.
Mike Busatil, you should join us. The link is in the stream if you want to join.
Lilitu, Babylonian she-demon. That's what I was telling Hezi in another chat recently. I was saying that that Babylon is his name is
This is
Harlot Babylon.
probably.
His name is Lilith.
I was gonna say you probably won't see this connection, but do you see any connection? I don't really see it myself, but you might be able to articulate it better for me. Between the burning bush and the plant at the bottom of the ocean,
Ooh.
like plants of salvation.
Right. That's a good question. I don't know. I would say that this story is older than Exodus. The story doesn't get into anything Exodus. The only bits that it seems explicitly connected to stories that are what is the
Well, because like
pre-Babel.
because I mean, like the thing, kind of the idea is that if it's Gilgamesh, Nimrod, this is like the builder of the city where the Tower of Babel is, or something, right? Or possibly,
So one of the ideas that I would have is that this is what Abraham leaves.
Mm.
So everything that's after Abraham is not included in. If you look at comparative, Kirk was talking about comparative religions and all that other stuff, and hero's journey. If you take all of the stories that are in every single culture, and you look at the Bible, it's everything that's pre-flood, or it's everything pre-Babel. So Babel is in the Americas. Babel is in China. It's in Japan. It's like the flood too. They have it everywhere. The Vikings have the stories. The Warring Brothers. The
I think
serpents. Tree of
I think
life.
I think some of all of the book of Genesis gets out there because you have all the nations coming to Egypt for the grain, which I think the evidence of which is circumcision that you see all over the world. That's my
Yeah.
Why are you giving my brother material to comment on?
me.
I really liked William's comment, but it's probably
So-
going down a different hole, I guess.
I know like the official story is like, Abraham had the full Torah and all that stuff and spoke perfect Hebrew, but like he probably spoke like Akkadian or something or whatever this is
Right,
right. So I wonder even if there is like, because I guess whatever it is, whenever they transported all those cuneiform tablets and they just like threw them in a box and put them on a truck and they all broke, and now it's like this super long process where they're trying to convince people to get to learn cuneiform to piece the shards together that broke when the archaeologists did a bad job or whatever. Like, I wonder if there's a Genesis in there somewhere, because it's like boxes and boxes.
So
boxes
one of the things I believe occurs is that I don't think Genesis is in its final form until it's written down by Moses, because Moses writes it in a particular way that uses Egyptian loanwords.
The narrator passes around. Oh yeah, but possibly there could be a Genesis 1 to 11, I think, or something.
Right. But
because that's definitely
yeah. I don't think the version of Hebrew exists at Babel.
Right.
I'm sorry to say it. I know. Yeah. Because we have found more archaic versions of language.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Moses is using what he has, and what he has is Hebrew with some Egyptian loanwords. The Torah has more Egyptian loanwords than the rest of the Hebrew Bible. It's clearly written by someone who knows Egyptian.
But because when you get to that, like, so till chapter 11, with the genealogies there or whatever, right. It's like clearly it's like a different written portion, and so that seems like that's the thing Abraham had. So like maybe he had his little tablet that he took with him or whatever with that on it or something. It's definitely it would be neat if they found something like that. But
I want to say to Caspian, Job uses a lot of Hebrew poetry and poetic form. For me, I didn't get far enough into Hebrew that I would be able to distinguish the age of Job's Hebrew.
I've heard it's older, but I don't know if that's true.
Does anyone have anything else to say before we go away?
Not much.
Before we go away?
He wanted to talk about the Green Knight or something, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Jason wanted to bring up the Green Knight.
There's so much in here. So first of all, I mean, before we end it, definitely, I liked what William said. I think Lilith is, at least there's parallels to Lilith and the harlot that seduces Enkidu. With William's comment that Lilith was Adam's first wife, and her second husband is Samael, not Samuel, Samael, which is like the god of all demons or something, like the god of death or something like that. But I think there's lots of parallels to that too, because when Enkidu curses the harlot before he dies, he basically just flat out, I mean, says the stuff in Book of Revelation. He says, you're gonna, what is it? Let me see if I can find the part. He basically prophesies over it and says, you're gonna be that harlot spirit that causes men to lust after the things of the earth. And you're going to adorn them with precious stones and all this stuff. And the kings will lust after you and you'll make them beautiful and all this stuff. So he's basically prophesying over harlot Babylon. Like she is the harlot, which I think is the same thing as Lilith. At least that's how I've come to understand it. So there's that aspect. I also thought Humbaba, there's like just so many parallels with that whole story and like the great god Pan or the Green Knight and things like that. It's kind of like the masculine aspect of the wild or something like that. They're going to tame wilderness itself, wildness itself, as
Right.
Enkidu and Gilgamesh are going into the wilderness to tame wildness. And it's like, and then there's this masculine aspect that comes because when you go into the wild, there's like a feminine aspect where it's like comforting and warm and you can go camping and like, it's like, oh, this is my mother nature. But then there's also this aspect to nature where it's like, it just feels very masculine and like, I'm going to F you up if you come in here with the wrong spirit. And it's like, that to me seems like kind of what Humbaba is. And they just don't show any mercy to him. It's like when in the Green Knight where he kind of he's wrestling with that. It almost seems like the Green Knight is that, and Sir Gawain is kind of wrestling with that same spirit of the masculine aspect of the wild while trying to navigate the feminine aspect of it too. In that whole movie, it's just, I don't know. There seems to be a lot of parallels, but at the end, he doesn't. Well, he kills the Green Knight in the beginning, but at the end, he doesn't.
That's not the ending of the book.
Yeah, the book, The Green Knight. Yeah. Did you see the same parallels? Did anybody else see that, or was it just me? That's
I
kind
get
of
what
the
you mean. I very much get what you mean. Where there's like the monster in the woods is kind of an embodiment of nature itself, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of if a human was more like an animal.
yeah, yeah. I think so. And like, I mean, because I think there's a lot of similar stories with Pan. Like, it's like he's kind of this masculine, wild. He's the god of the shepherds, so he's the god of like the people who live in the woods, dwell in tents. They're in the wild, but then at the same time, he's absolutely terrifying. Like the word panic comes from him, which like if you have this Humbaba whose face is made of like spilled the innards of people, it's like how terrifying would that be to encounter in the woods? It's just like your whole body's turned inside out with and you're paralyzed with fear. I don't know.
You should look at
Humbaba
more depictions of him because sometimes he has a live snake for a penis. if you want to see something a little more.
Enkidu, if you break that apart from it, Enkidu is man tamed. Humbaba is nature personified to be tamed. To be tamed. Okay, yeah. Because that kind of seems like some of what, I mean, Gilgamesh, he's kind of the civilized man. He's the king. He's the god man. He's the divine aspect of man. And so he's trying to build a city and uh and you have to tame nature in order to do that. But the weird thing is, like, Enkidu is the one who kind of presses him into it. He's the one. He almost seems like he's kind of got this vendetta for it, for Humbaba or something. He's like, I had to live with this guy for so many years. It's kind of like what is it? Jumanji. That's what it reminds me of. Robin Williams when he comes out of the game Jumanji, and he's like, no, I've been in that game. I know Humbaba. Like, you guys don't know what you're messing with.
Enkidu's like, we don't want to mess with him.
Yeah.
Don't touch him.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's funny. I just had a kind of an overarching kind of observation or thinking just about like, mentioning like the Tarzan stories before and kind of things like that. And there's kind of like a Peter Pan thing or whatever. And I was reading this book. It was The Toxic War on Masculinity. and she was talking about like after Darwinism came out, basically like that's like Tarzan was like a myth, super popular after that, and
That
there
makes
was this
perfect
whole
sense.
like
Yeah.
return to the wild, and now we kind of have all this like evolutionary psychology, and we want to always and we always like say it's like because of chimps and stuff, but it's like all the evolutionary psychology about like human sexual behavior is just telling us to act like people from the Epic of Gilgamesh and other like mythological things. So it's weird how it's literally just pre-Christian pagan culture, but we want to couch it in like the terms of like it's biology telling us to do it. So
Right.
What did Emily just say? Grotto of Pan is where Jesus said, "On this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it."
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
there was believed to be an entrance to Hades at that very place.
they showed that in The Chosen.
Wow.
Do they?
Yeah.
It's one of the things that is now known. Yeah.
Yeah, they said, I don't know. It's just interesting. I really want to listen to the story again and just keep like meditating on it. Because even the whole idea of them going to slay the bull of heaven after slaying Humbaba, it's like that's, I don't know. I feel like there's just so much that can be mined out of that whole idea as well.
And when Ishtar comes over and is upset with them, Enkidu rips out the thigh of the bull and slaps her in the face with it. I was just like, whoa, okay. All right, buddy.
Yeah, MGTOW.
You mentioned something about Ishtar earlier too, and you said the goddess of love, and that she, what were you saying, that like she always kind of has to betray her lovers in order to find more loveliness or
So there's
something like that?
yeah, it's that there's an image of like romantic love is fleeting, that you just keep on going after another woman. So Ishtar is the goddess of love, but she's a slut, right?
It's also the goddess of war too, right? Doesn't it say that at the beginning? And the prologue, I thought it said something like that. The goddess of, she's also a slut. I get that. I'm following you. I'm tracking with you. Let's see. Ishtar, Our Lady of Love and War, is what it said in the prologue. But
That's
anyways, continue.
yeah.
She's also a slut.
That's interesting because it's funny because I was thinking about it before I read even going to this, just from thinking about like the Genesis 6 thing, and then that Homath guy, and he had this video called Stuck, and it's about like women get stuck on their highest setting or whatever, and like he uses like the example of like the old lady from Titanic, you know, she's got a family, she's got all this life, but she's just stuck on Leonardo DiCaprio from 90 years ago or whatever, because like that was the thing. And you know, you have Gilgamesh here, and it made me just thinking like these Nephilim guys, or you know, whatever, these like sons of God, these impressive men, and then like, you know, he's with all the women before their wedding night and stuff, and like, you know, basically like ruining the dating pool or whatever for all the regular guys by you know, their all their wives are putting Gilgamesh on a pedestal or whatever, like, why aren't you a real man like Gilgamesh was? And, you know.
So this is his response to the goddess of love, and I think this is about how fleeting love is.
Yeah.
How would it go with me? Your lovers have found you like a brazier which smolders in the cold, a back door which keeps out neither squall of wind nor storm, a castle which crushes the garrison, pitch that blackens the bearer, a water skin that chafes the carrier, a stone which falls from the parapet, a battering ram turned back from the enemy, a a sandal that trips the wearer. Which of your lovers did you ever love forever? What shepherd of yours has pleased you for all time? Listen to me while I tell you the tale of your lovers. There was Tammuz, the lover of your youth. For him you decreed wailing year after year. You loved the many-colored roller, but still you stuck and broke his wings. Now in the grove he sits and cries, Cappy, Cappy, my wing, my wing. You have loved the lion tremendously in strength. 7 pits you dug for him, and 7. You have loved the stallion, magnificent in battle, and for him you decreed whip and spur and a thong, a gallop, 7 leagues by force, muddy waters. And he keeps on going on. It seems like he's got animals as some of her lovers. But either way, the idea is like she just keeps on moving on, right? That's
Yeah.
if you follow your lust wants to move on to the next one.
Can I read this too to follow up with that?
Yeah, do it.
And we'll see. You can tell me if this parallels. But the chief thing that makes her beautiful is this: that although she loves no man, she loves the love of any man. And when she finds one in her power, her desire to bewitch him and gain his love, not for the sake of his love either, but that she may be conscious anew of her own beauty, through the admiration and he manifests, makes her very lovely, with a self-destructive beauty, though, for it is that which is constantly wearing her away within, till at last the decay will reach her face and her whole front, when all the lovely mask of nothing will fall to pieces, and she be vanished forever.
That's great. What is that?
From, of course, George MacDonald, Fantasties.
And that's about
But
Lilith specifically, or
no, this is not about Lilith. This is Fantasties. It's like a kind of like a wandering through fairyland. It seems to have parallels to like Bambi, I think, honestly, and the Green Knight the Green Knight movie. I don't know about the story, um, but I like it. Personally like it better than Lilith. I think Lilith might be more profound, um, but yeah, it just kind of reminded me of that when you're talking about the goddess of love who has to continually find herself lovely. And there's an interesting idea where I I don't hear it talked about much in Christian circles at all. I think if anything, it's in occult circles, and I don't know that it's based around Hecate or not. I don't think it is, but there's the three aspects of women: the mother, the maiden, the crone type thing. You know what I'm talking about? And it seems like
yeah.
at least how we're describing Ishtar when we're talking about her right now. I don't know all of the other lore about her, but the virgin goddess, the goddess of beauty, the goddess of love, it's like she's always the maiden and always has to be the maiden. And that's at the expense of her lovers. She remains lovely. She's got to find a new one to
Well, that's
find
definitely
her.
like Aphrodite. That's what she's like. It's like basically she just is like, well, she's a slut for whoever's interested in her. Like that's her favorite thing is people being interested in her and thinking she's beautiful or whatever. So it's
It's
Oh, he
interesting how
said,
often this
I didn't even see what he
overlaps with
said.
war, though, because of jealousy, right?
Yeah. Which is like why I think that's what Aphrodite and what is it? Aries, Aphrodite and Aries, or Mars. Mars is the god of war, and they're always like in cahoots. But I didn't even see William Branch had already said something about the Virgin Mother crone in the comments. But yeah,
I have a
triple goddess.
question for the married people. Cassandra, you are you married? You're married? You have a husband, correct? Michael, I know you have a wife. Part of my experience about maturing is that like there used to be an expression where like when a man got married, like a woman, people would describe the sex act as being making a man out of you, right? I'm going to make a man out of you. What is meant by I'm going to make a man out of you is like sex and all that there would be this growth. And my personal experience is that I became a man when I became married. So living with my wife is like, can you fix this thing? It was like hanging a picture frame. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. Like my dad never taught me this hypothetically like very manly thing. So my wife gets up and she starts doing it very wrong. And I just go, okay, I don't know how to do it, but I do know how to do it better than that. And there's all these things where before, like I've joked that I'm queer coded because like I wrote poetry. I met my wife because like I was always a drama kid. right? I wasn't playing sports. I was doing all this stuff. It was very, very artistic. I was emo, right? So I had the swooped hair and all that business.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
And it's only once I start living with my wife that, like, now I'm responsible for killing all the mice. So I love animals, but I'm the one responsible for killing them. So now I become the stereotypical about that
How do
kind
you
of
do it?
what?
How do you do it?
Oh,
Nah.
it's just traps. But
Okay.
I daily check the traps. I live in an old building, so I've
I didn't
killed
know if you
hundreds
got
of mice.
creative with it,
Well, it was
Yeah,
funny.
if you have the
My
glue traps, you have to actually kill them, which is not. It's not
Oh
fun.
yeah, that's rough.
my
Yeah.
wife my wife when we first were dating, I was living in a place that had mice, and she wanted uh, our hardware stores sold this thing that was a humane way of capturing mice. So it's a trap where the mouse gets in and then can't get out, and then you have to walk like 100 feet away from your house and release the mouse. So we caught a mouse. We went to release it, and trying to get it out, it became so terrified of us trying to get him out of this live trap that he died of a heart attack of pure
No way.
terror.
Oh my god.
Pure terror. And my wife was just like, she's like traumatized by this, and she just goes, "It's you. You killed them. You don't let me see it." It was just like,
Yeah.
you be the man. And I became the man in relationship to my wife, not as a man on my own. Only in relationship to a woman do I become the man.
Huh. That's why.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's why.
I definitely wouldn't kill rodents on my own, but I have done it for my wife. So I hear you with that one.
That's why I think Wendy is the true hero of the Peter Pan story, at least in the book. Because yeah, she's that. You have Pan as the child who won't grow up, and then Hook is the like adulthood. It's like childhood and versus adulthood. They're always in combat.
And there is no image of a
She's the
woman.
mother.
There is no image of a woman playing video games in her father's basement, covered in Cheeto dust. That is a man who is a little
Codred
boy.
What is the female
Cheeto
equivalent
dust.
of what is the female equivalent of that?
Ooh.
Pink.
Cat lady.
I know what it
Black
is,
Swan.
and I don't want to talk about
Just
it.
say it. Come on.
I don't want to talk about it because I want to stay on this for a little bit. Cassandra, do you have experience with taming your husband and making a man out of him?
That's a funny way to phrase it. Taming my husband. I mean, I guess so. I think because we got married and then we moved out on our own. Because before that, we both just lived with our families, and so it was a big learning curve. I think for both of us, especially for him, because now he not only did he have to work like a real job, like actually work to do the house and stuff. He also started. I mean, I guess he's always a car guy, but like he does all his own car stuff. He does yard work now, which he never had to because he used to live in an apartment. And so stuff like that, yeah, he's had to take on a lot more responsibility because now it's him. Like I ask him stuff. Like if something goes wrong, I go to him, and he has to figure out, how to deal with me and how to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I think a similar maybe thing for women and just having kids too, because I think like once you become responsible for kids, there's something parallel happens like that.
Yeah.
And I
Go ahead, Jason.
uh,
Even though you're not
no.
married, I'll listen to you. I'll even
Oh,
listen
no,
to
no,
Kurt.
okay, yeah. No, well,
I'm not
I was gonna
married.
say with I think I can kind of guess what the answer was to Kirk's question as well, that you didn't want to go there. Isn't that the movie Black Swan? Is that what that's about?
That's part of it. That's definitely part of
Okay.
it.
That's what I thought. I've never really understood that movie. I haven't really dug into that with people. I feel like you're a good person who really picks apart movies pretty well, being in theater and stuff like that. But watch that movie. You'll get it
Yeah.
then.
So if we're it's very interesting how certain stereotypes become incredibly popular. So the it's the cat lady, I think, is one of them.
The
Where
Redditor?
you, sorry, what was that, Kurt?
Just go ahead.
I was going to say that the image of needing objects to love, like that there's, and it, like you have these things where you're pouring love into them.
Well, I think it's sort of like with social media nowadays, with like Redditors, that's what they do, except with thumbs up, right? When you think about it, like social media is to young people what cats are to cat ladies, unfortunately.
That's interesting.
Well, it's okay. Let's see, how are we going to do this? I think part of it for women maturing is an embracing of weakness. I think that might be part of it, where it's like an admission of like I can't do this. I need your help.
Hmm.
And it seems like a maturing of men is trying to become capable, and a maturing of women is realizing you don't have to be. Is that right?
You know what? Well, you know
Mm.
what? I think probably typically the immature woman was like Artemis, or no, like Aphrodite, like the flirt, and
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, just attention seeking. It's interesting. So I read this book about Artemis of the Ephesians, and her whole like cult or whatever, and she was like, it's very like proto feminist. She was like the original girl boss, the independent woman who doesn't need a man. And so I think it's weird because that's where you get like a cat lady, because she never met a man that was competent enough for her to look up to. So she's just on her own her whole life. So that's like kind of the model of that. But we have those simultaneous models of Artemis and Aphrodite going at the same time.
I had this interaction with someone. It was so funny. There was this girl that was part of one of the theater communities that I was a part of, and she was a very, very big flirt. And she got everything she wanted through boys thinking she's pretty. Okay. So she would get rides and all these other things, like uh, because there were guys that were just like desperate for her. And it was very, very interesting because she was just such a flirt with everyone. And I witnessed it in a conversation where she like didn't know how to interact with me because I was happily married and I wouldn't engage with her the way that she wanted to engage. And she was just like, and just like walked away. It was just like, if you're a boy, and she would like, her interest was mostly talking to men, very few women, and didn't know how to function with a man who didn't want to objectify her. And this is a very particularly interesting time for me because these people that I grew up with who would have these kind of characteristic, I'm on the edge of 40. So some of these tricks are no longer as enticing for people, and they don't know what to do, and that's also fascinating.
This is so. Can I ask a question to follow up to your whole point there?
Yeah.
There's in this thing we were just reading with Ishtar. There's right before you stop, she gets to this last one. What is it? Ishulanu? Dear Ishulanu, come here to me. Let us enjoy your manhood. Come forward and take me. I am yours. Ishulanu answered, what are you asking from me? My mother has baked and I have eaten. Why should I come to such as you for food that is tainted and rotten? For when was the screen of rushes sufficient protection from frost? But when you heard his But when you had heard his answer, you struck him. He was changed to a blind mole deep in the earth, one whose desire is always beyond his reach. Like, what is that's just so
Yeah, one of her
such a
old
weird thing.
lovers is that's where it became a mole.
Well, it's just like there's you describing this girl whose her interactions with the with men is to try to get them to try to woo them or try to like seduce them in some way or let make her feel beautiful or something
Yeah,
like that. And then there's the person like you didn't really engage in that and she just didn't know what to do. But with Aphrodite, like the goddess of love, this guy says he's not gonna engage in that. And then she strikes him blind and his desire is always beyond his reach, which is like I don't know why. I just those are one of those things that just strike me as a strange thing to say to put in a story. It's like because she's the goddess of love. As far as I know, I'm sure there's so much more around her than just that. She's the goddess of love and war, but love and war is like desire in a way. And now because he's scorned it, now he's blinded to it or something, and his desire is always beyond his reach, and he can never have it or something. I don't know. It's just a strange way to end that. I don't know. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I like it.
Is that okay? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I like it. Um, yeah, these consequences. It's very very interesting because you think if love is deified, then obviously you'd think it's great, right? No, they're talking about it as this thing which possesses people. It's more like love, instead of love as a god means love is worshipped. There is this element, but a lot of the worshiping of gods was to make it stop. Make it stop. Right? Like make the possessing stop. Make make it go away, right? And that's one
Yeah.
of the things is that um, the unwilling within our culture there's a variety of different ways that someone becomes immature, right? So masculine immaturity is sometimes too much masculinity is also immature. Like that's one of the reasons why homophobia is immature. Is you're so scared that someone's going to think you're a wussy. It's just like who cares? Who cares, man? It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like the
But there are
Notting
actual
Hill is a
problems with
great movie.
homosexuality.
Guys, I'm gonna go to bed.
Good night. Good night,
All right.
Michael.
Good night.
Yep.
Good night, Michael.
Thanks for coming out, Michael.
These comments have been super interesting too. I wish like sometimes they just drop things
We're
in the
so
comments. I'm like,
derailed,
could you
but no.
expand? Could you please expand on what you're saying? Like, I don't know. This is really intriguing, but
Jason, when do you plan on getting married to Rebecca?
Oh,
oh,
guys,
I don't know. On the live stream, ask that question.
he he has to help her. Right now, he has to help her leave him. That's what he's tasked to do.
Help her leave me?
Isn't that what you're doing? You're helping her move.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. 'Cause I didn't know, yeah, move physically. I didn't know what you meant by that. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm purposely trying
Or
to
helping
make her
her
hate me.
leave.
Yeah. When? I don't know. Do you have a specific date you have in mind, Kirk? When are you free?
I'll
Kirk,
have.
Kirk is saying he thinks that you found a very nice girl to kill mice for.
She is very nice.
No,
I would kill mice for her.
no,
There's
she'll
really
make you
no
into a
nice way
real
to.
man, Pinocchio.
No, the girl is nice. The killing mice is not nice. You find a nice girl to
No,
kill
no.
mice for.
When you were talking about that too, I was thinking about all the times I've had to do that. I had bad infestation of mice in my old house at one point, and it's like there's no good way to kill anything. Like it's just like there's not like I mean, I guess if you get a 22 or something, you can kind of distance yourself a little, but you're not gonna do that with a mouse anyway. And it's just all the times I've had to kill a mouse, it was like there's not, yeah, it was just the traps I think are the best way if you're gonna have to kill them. That way, just go
Would
pick it
would
up
you
like.
rather eat? Would you rather eat mouse or would you rather eat? I wonder what's a really um snails.
I
Snail?
think
I'd
I'd
probably
go
rather.
snails.
I think so too.
Yeah, probably.
I've
Yeah,
eaten rabbit. Rabbit is quite good.
I've eaten rabbit.
It's
I've eaten
very
squirrel.
gamey.
In Australia, you hold a mouse by the tail and throw it against a brick. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
See, you can do that. I don't know.
I forget what it's called, but
I don't believe in animal rights.
there's a trap where you set it up and it's like a little hole that the rat sticks its head in, and when it does, there's a piston that slams into its head and it dies and it falls out and it resets it. And it'll
Oh
do
my
that like up
goodness.
to, I don't know, 30, 25
Oh
times.
Don't
my
ruin
goodness.
David's
The
appetite.
No Country for Old Men mousetrap.
I heard
Great.
about it in because Hawaii is overrun with rats, so they started putting those around to like
Oh
take
my.
all of them out.
Oh yeah, because you want one. Because I've had that problem before where I like have set 5 traps and all of them were filled in one of them.
By the way, sorry if just because we're about to end. Sorry earlier if you took any racist implications of me asking if you were Hindu.
Was that me
Oh.
or Jason?
I was asking you if you were Hindu, and I'm sorry if you took any racist implications. That's not what I would do.
Kirk, this is very important for people
Or
to know.
sorry, your brother was Hindu.
Oh, my brother's not Hindu. No,
No, I asked that, and I'm sorry if you took any racist implications.
I
of my
did.
question.
Kirk, these are things you don't understand. Number one, Indian people think I'm Indian, so that's fine. Number two, my brother is actually white. My brother was born with blonde hair.
What?
He has
What?
green eyes.
How?
He's white. My
Yeah,
brother's
how
white.
is this? How? Um, it's okay, Kirk. We don't get offended at racism on this channel.
Yeah. In fact, we prefer.
I know
it,
you didn't
but
mean it
that's
that way,
not right.
but
That's too,
yeah.
that's
Well,
too
let's-
fun.
Kirk, what do you think I am?
You look somewhat South Korean. I don't know.
He's so wrong.
What's wrong? What is?
I guess
I wouldn't
right
know.
away.
You did? What'd you guess? I would have no idea.
I guess Filipino from the Philippines.
Well, not from the Philippines.
Well,
From
yeah.
California.
She's Filipina.
I like that he actually said Filipina.
Emily
He's
guessed that
paying-
as well. Philippines.
He's paying
That's
attention.
grammatically correct.
Ah.
Sure.
The thing with Indian people too, though, is like India is such a big country. You go to one part of India and another, and they look totally different. So
There's
brother?
me when I had hippie long hair, and there's my white brother.
Ooh, nice.
You look in that picture. You sort of look like Dr. K. You know who he is.
Dr. K. I don't know who that is. This is another one of the like when you
my
told
brother.
Christian Baxter he looks like that. Baker Field guy. Nice.
I love how you show us his personal Facebook.
That's fine. I don't care. Bothered my brother. What do I care? How long? Look at that hippie hair.
Oh, William Branch said, on my screen you are all midgets.
He sort of
14
looks like
official
that dude, that blonde dude from that '70s show.
Yeah, he does look a little bit like Lance Bass from NSYNC.
It's
Looks a bit like that, and oh man, so his hair is now like brown. But when he was in high school, because of the time period, he had the frosted tips, so he looked
Ooh.
very much like a member of
Nice.
NSYNC.
Did you ever have like the chunk, the blonde chunk, like the scene kid emo hair?
I never
Never
dyed my
did.
hair because my hair is
Never
so
did?
black. It would take a lot of effort.
Stuck with it. Yeah.
I had a mohawk at one point. Required
That's
a
cool.
lot of effort because it was a big one.
That's fun.
Well, does anyone have anything else they want to talk about now that we talked about everything imaginable?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I really think there is a lot more to talk about with the story, of course. But I think
Oh, just one question. Tomorrow, what are we doing in terms of the Bible study? What chapter?
I can't remember. It's whatever comes after what we were talking about last.
you
That's
guys
the.
had ended at the
Something
beginning
Samuel?
of the chapter.
Is that what happened?
We
Yeah, I
did
think
two
so.
chapters.
You did 2 chapters, and then you read like the beginning of one because you were like, you would have to read the beginning of this chapter in order to end this section.
I think we're at. I think we're at 5.
No,
we're
we
Oh my
did
God.
5.
Yeah, because
Me
you talked
with
about the
the.
hemorrhoids, right?
We did 5 because that was Dagon.
And then you did 6 with the Ishmael, right? Was it? No, not Ishmael.
Is this you again?
Yeah, that's me. That's me with a mohawk.
Yeah, I think you started at. I think you left off at 7 verse. You read the first verse in 7, so you're gonna
Yeah.
start at
So
7,
we're gonna do 7 and
7 verse
maybe a bit of
2.
8.
Nice. I'll try to be there. It always is in the middle of my workday, but hopefully I can. If I get a break, I'll hop in.
Okay.
It's good stuff. It really is. I mean,
That's my
I
dad. That is
really.
my father when he went through his midlife crisis. He
Where's he
grew
from?
his hair long because he was jealous of my long hair.
Where's your
So
father
he
from?
Malta. He's Maltese. So he didn't like the hair getting in his eyes, so he cut himself bangs.
Oh my God.
Look at that
Did
schnoz too. Look at that
Yeah,
nose.
that's a good schnoz. Very good schnoz. Does your older brother have the same father?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just
that's
my mom's white. My mom is Irish, Scottish, German, British. So I have the exact same. Like I have a tiny nose. I don't have a what is called a Roman nose. I don't have it.
Roman nose.
He got called Cheech so many times. People, my dad got called Cheech all the time. That was like, yeah. Anyway,
I
great.
could have sworn you were Indian for a while.
I know. Well, like especially right now, I think I look particularly Indian, but that's because it's also the summer and I get a bit of a tan.
Anyway,
That's cool.
that's all.
Okay,
Show's over,
good.
folks. Goodbye.
Show's over. Good night, everyone.
Good luck.
See you tomorrow.